Fans begin to notice that something's up when One Direction releases the promotional footage for their perfume Between Us. Yes, One Direction has several perfumes. Catch up. Look at me. Focus. That's not important right now. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Carly, and it's been a moment. My life has been crazy. I'm coming to you from my old bedroom in my parents' house. I have bed bugs. I thought I was having hives and an allergic reaction to a bunch of stuff and was just away last month because I thought my health was failing. Turns out I am allergic to bed bugs. So listen, it's getting dealt with, but I'm here in my old bedroom. You might remember me filming YouTube videos from here a while ago. It's now kind of an ugly office, but we're here, we're queer. We are ready to discuss the real reason One Direction broke up. This is a video that I've been thinking about a lot. It's based upon a Reddit thread I saw that has now been wiped from the internet. I went back in the Wayback Machine and collected information about it, and basically it aims to uncover, with the information that we have now, what really happened when One Direction broke up. The stories we were told, the timeline, the public perceptions at the time, and then with the information that we have now, trying to contextualize that and figure out as close as possible what really happened. It's basically like Serial, but instead of trying to get Adnan Syed free, I'm trying to figure out why Zayn left One Direction. So that's something, you know. It's like Serial for girls who didn't date in middle school or high school. That's basically it. Let's just talk. I feel like we should just jump in. On March 25th, 2015, the One Direction Facebook page, Let That Land, released a post saying that Zayn Malik had officially left the band. I want to read that post. I should have gotten this already, but hey. After 5 incredible years, Zayn Malik has decided to leave One Direction. Niall, Harry, Liam, and Louis will continue as a 4-piece and look forward to the forthcoming concerts on their world tour and recording their 5th album, due to be released later this year. Zayn says, "My life with One Direction has been more than I could ever have imagined. But after 5 years, I feel like now is the right time to leave the band. I'd like to apologize to the fans if I've let anyone down, but I have to do what feels right in my heart. I am leaving because I want to be a normal 22-year-old. I was like a child fan of One Direction. I became fans of them when I was like 10. I guess until if he left in 2015, I must have been like, it's March, so I wasn't yet 16, I was 15. So let's say until I was 16. It's now being 25. It's actually insane to imagine them being 22. Like if I was 22 in a world famous girl band, like I would actually have quit 7 times over. Like, I would not be normal. I'm leaving because I want to be a normal 22-year-old who is able to relax and have some private time out of the spotlight. I know I have 4 friends in life in Louis, Liam, Harry, and Niall. I know they will continue to be the best band in the world." One Direction say, "We're really sad to see Zayn go, but we totally respect his decision and send him all of our love for the future. The past 5 years have been beyond amazing. We've gone through so much together, so we will always be friends. The 4 of us will now continue. We're looking forward to recording the next album and seeing all of the fans in the next stage of the world tour." Simon Cowell says, "I would like to say thank you to Zayn for everything he has done for One Direction. Since I first met Zayn in 2010, I have grown very, very fond and immensely proud of him. I have seen him grow in confidence and am truly sorry to see him leave. As for One Direction, fans can rest assured that Niall, Liam, Harry, Zayn, and Louis, nope, not Zayn, but Niall, Liam, Harry, and Louis are hugely excited about the future of the band." D-Day for One Direction fans when this dropped. I remember at this point I was 15 and my family had decided to move back to Canada, so they were like uprooting my 15-year-old life. Actually the worst thing that had ever happened to me at that time, because nothing bad had really actually happened to me yet. And we were looking at new schools on this day because it was like March break and we were just like looking at new schools. So I was already in a fucking rancid mood, fucking pissed that my life was being upended as a 15-year-old. No perspective. And this coming out, the shot heard around the fucking world. Couldn't believe it. I was huge in the One Direction fandom. Not like famous, I wasn't a famous person, but I was locked the fuck in. Okay? It was really shocking because I think that there's like a real rose-colored glasses when it comes to the dynamics of the band. Obviously now we have a bit more information that things weren't all peaches and cream between the members of One Direction. But like we were like, what the fuck? What do you mean? Like we couldn't understand it. That's kind of why like now I wanted to go back down the rabbit hole and be like, what the happened? I also find their solo careers fascinating. We're gonna get into that as well. So that was in March 25th, 2015. On August 23rd, 2015, news outlets begin to report that One Direction will take an extended hiatus from group activities starting in 2016. And in January of 2016, they officially went on hiatus. It doesn't seem like that's going to end now. So what the hell happened? What actually happened? This serial music's playing behind me. Ding, 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 ding. A boy band. What is a boy band? I'm Carly Thorne. This is Serial Podcast. And this week, we are oh my God, I was fucking cooking there. We are uncovering why One Direction broke up. Hi, coming into the video from my bug bed infested house. A little bit of an old school laptop moment because I washed and dried in my washing machine and dryer my SD card adapter. So like, we're rocking. I wanted to take a quick break from deep diving into the One Direction lore and talk about this video's sponsor, Midas Merge. Times are tough right now. I have been really falling into gaming, like cute gaming. It lets me like brain off, stress off, negative feelings off. And one of the games that I've been really enjoying playing is Midas Merge. I've actually got some of my friends onto it. It is addictive. Midas Merge is a puzzle matching game, but with really, really cute characters. You like discover and nurture these little creatures and help heal this garden and like meet friends. And you hatch and evolve these animals by like matching them. Get this, the game is free to download, ad-free, endless fun. There's literally no downsides. You do not need Wi-Fi, so you can play it on the subway, as I have been known to do. There's also like a story involved. You're teaming up with King Midas and Queen Leah, and you're helping them revive their gardens, which are called the Gardens of Gold, okay, lore, which are right now like being controlled by the goddess of night, Nyx. J.R.R. Tolkien found dead in a ditch. Like, I'm sorry y'all can't see the vision. I'm addicted. So if you want to turn your brain off and just have a beautiful, beautiful time, go to the link in my description or scan the QR code, which is on the screen now, and download Midas Merge. If you are one of the first 100 people to install Midas Merge via the link in my description below or the QR code on the screen right now, you receive a unique U-Turtle Level 2 exclusive. Adorable. That boosts your garden process, okay? And most importantly, has the greatest name on planet Earth, Carly. A name of warriors, a name of queens. Again, if you are one of the first 100 people to install Midas Merge using the link in my description below or the QR code on the screen now, you get a unique U-Turtle Level 2, which boosts your garden power and is named after me. Thank you so much to Midas Merge for sponsoring this video, and thank you for helping me decompress in this stressful time. So before we get to my exhibits of evidence, I want to give you a brief overview of One Direction's career. If you're watching this video and you have no context for who they are or what they did, I applaud you if that is the case. Very proud of you, very happy for you. I myself had no life, basically from the ages of like 10 to 19, I would say, and I barely have a life now, but as a chronically online teen, I've got a PhD in One Direction. But I understand that other people might have been like living life touching grass, engaging with the brief and wondrous life we have all been given. Can't fucking relate, but I understand that you might not know who One Direction is, to the extent that I do. So let's get into it. So the band is made up of Liam Payne, Niall Horan, Louis Tomlinson, Zayn Malik, and Harry Styles. They apply for the X Factor in 2010 as solo artists, each of them, giving some of the truly most crazy auditions of all time. People think that they were industry plants, like Simon Cowell had already decided to form One Direction, had them audition, and then put them together. And I think that's because the narrative of them auditioning the way they did for the X Factor and then becoming a worldwide band is so crazy and unsatisfying, it makes no sense. Their auditions are like not that good. They're okay. I would not be able to do better, oh my god. But like they actually do become much better singers. Basically everyone besides Liam's audition is basically bad. Like, Harry's got charisma. They have like their certain charms, and I think that like obviously there was something there that was kind of like the je ne sais quoi, but the auditions themselves are not very good. Oh, it's what you do to me. But hey, so they applied as solo artists on the X Factor. They make it to like the boot camp stage and then get cut, but they are brought back and put into basically a group. They're like, we're cutting you as solo artists, but we are bringing you together as a band. What I think is interesting about this, and I think that this is why it was never going to work, and it was kind of crazy that it worked for as long as they did. Applying as a solo artist is a different headspace than wanting to be in a boy band, right? So already you have people who kind of want to succeed on their own with their own identities, see this world for themselves where they are the star. And I think that is why One Direction worked so well, is they each had their own like identities and personalities, and it was kind of like, choose your fighter. Which one do you want? Which boy do you want? But there wasn't a lot of like synchronicity, and I think part of that reason is because they all applied separately. I mean, every band is like doomed to fail in the sense that everything ends, but like it makes sense to me. They get put together in a band on the X Factor. Simon Cowell, basically, who's involved in the One Direction lore to the point in which when Zayn leaves, he is quoted in the Facebook post, claims he is the one that puts them together. He signs them to Modest Management after the X Factor, but in released footage later, it's actually Trump supporter Nicole Scherzinger from the Pussycat Dolls. She's the one that like ends up putting them together, which is so crazy. There's so many like random things, like feminist icon astronaut Katy Perry is the one that put Niall through after his audition. So if feminist icon astronaut Katy Perry did not put Niall through, we wouldn't have One Direction in its current form. And without Trump supporter Broadway baby Nicole Scherzinger putting the boys together, we wouldn't have One Direction. So they compete on the X Factor, place third. Doesn't really matter. They've already basically got this huge fan base in the UK, and they're looking to expand to the US. Simon Cowell signs them to Modest Management. Their original deal, we'll get into the specifics of that contract because that's what this kind of video is about. But basically they are signed, and they have basically from when they audition in 2010 on the X Factor, an absolutely unhinged and wild schedule. They release one album every single year that they are together as a band. They tour basically constantly with them recording the album while on tour. In the One Direction movie, there was some kind of thing of like Louis had like not been home in like 3 years, or like had not been home for more than like a day since auditioning for the X Factor. Like, the schedule is crazy. There's nobody really protecting them, which I think is also like a really kind of sad thing because they are so young. They were all like teenagers when they were on. They're like 16, 17 when they were on the X Factor. The thing that I think about all the time is like Harry Styles dating Caroline Flack. He was 17 and she was 31. So that kind of gives you the idea of like the level of protection that they were under. A lot of these boys were like, there is let's say alleged, I'm not about to be sued by Modest Management or any of its affiliates, but nobody was protecting them. All that you need to know, just so you get an idea of them before we get into the kind of breakup solo timeline, is I'd quick look into the writing credits and line distribution of their albums, just to get an idea of kind of like maybe the perceived workload that they were going through at the time. The people who wrote the most One Direction songs were Louis and Liam. They were writing the most One Direction songs. All of them wrote to like a certain extent, but especially towards the end when almost all of their songs on their albums were written by a member of the band, it was Louis and Liam. Line distribution wise, you get a lot of Harry, you get a good amount of Liam and a good amount of Zayn. Generally speaking, Harry sings a verse and sings the chorus. Liam starts off a song, like the first verse. Zayn will often do like a bridge and a high note before the final chorus. That's kind of the vibe we're going for, with the rest of the line split up between Louis and Niall, but it's not equitable in the same way. Like, Harry is singing a ton of these lines, so followed closely by Liam and Zayn. So that's just, if you aren't like in the One Direction lore and know the band dynamics, I feel like that's kind of helpful just to give you kind of like a base level understanding. They're on a crazy schedule. They are not being protected or taken care of. They're constantly getting sick, losing their voice, etc., constantly on the road. Again, like, nobody is protecting them from these older women in their lives. Also, they applied for the X Factor as solo artists, so there's already a weird dynamic, especially with boy bands, which we're going to talk in the next section about, like, who's going solo? Who's going to be the Beyoncé? Who's going solo? So that's obviously already kind of a thought process in your mind when you're starting the band, which is kind of And the workload wise, like, it is not equal in terms of line distribution. And, you know, somebody like Louis, who might not be getting as much line distribution, is writing a lot of the songs, things like that. Exhibit A, the Beyoncé of One Direction. Who's going solo? When you think about boy bands and girl bands, especially Western boy bands and girl bands, there is always the conversation of who is the Beyoncé? Who is going solo and who's going to be famous? After the band breaks up, one person is going to go solo. It's going to probably be the first person who leaves. They're going to be famous and everyone else will fade into obscurity. So I know that you're 16 and in this band with your best friends, but who's going to go solo and destroy the careers of everyone else? Quick cue. You don't get that, I think, in different bands and in different iterations. Like, I feel like you don't see that even in K-pop as much. It's like a very specific Western boy band, girl band thing. It's like Posh Spice, I guess Nicole Scherzinger, I can't say her last name. Robbie Williams from the Monkey movie. Beyoncé. Justin Timberlake. Who's going solo and destroying everyone else's career? Same thing happened with Fifth Harmony, which we can talk about later because that's messy, messy, messy. Camila left to like go solo and try to be the one that has the career while the others don't. So as soon as One Direction starts blowing up in America, they do their own version of the Beatles' British invasion in 2012, okay? They go on iCarly, they kind of strike a deal with Nickelodeon and do weird like pranks. There's one that's always stuck in my mind that played on like Nickelodeon, where it was a hidden camera thing and one of the producers gave birth, like pretended to give birth, and the boys were just like locked in this room with this woman who was giving birth from their perspective. And Harry Styles' baby was ready to deliver that baby. He was ready. He was like, okay, let's deliver the baby. So they're doing a lot of press on like the talk shows, on the morning shows, all that stuff. And while they're getting all of this press, the name on everybody's lips is who's going solo. Which one of you guys is going to go solo? Which one of you guys are going to go solo? Also, there was a lot of like, hey, Harry, you're like 17. How many women have you slept with? I know that you're a teenager and I'm a 45-year-old morning show host, but I'm really curious what your body count is. So there was that as well. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about who's going solo. And the general consensus, not within the fandom, I think within the fandom, for the most part, they were all pretty equally loved. There was obviously a bit of a Harry bias because Harry just was the most famous one and the one that felt like was being pushed the most. But like from my perspective at the time in the fandom, it really didn't feel inequitable. There wasn't really like a favorite. You all had your bias, but you liked everybody. That was kind of the vibe. I will say from looking at media outside of the fandom, the general consensus was that Harry was the most famous and that Harry Styles was going to go solo, and that was it. Although that was the conversation, that was what everybody was talking about. And not all the time, but that was basically a question that they started getting in 2012 until the band breakup in 2016. Who's going solo? Who's going to destroy everyone else's careers? Kind of vibe. On May 31st, 2022, Liam Payne goes on the Impulsive podcast with Logan Paul. I haven't watched it in full because like if I see Logan Paul's face too much, I will throw myself from a building. But I've seen the clips, and the clips out of context seem a bit cocky, seem a bit whatever. But what we're talking about specifically today, because I don't really want to clown on somebody who just like sadly has passed away. That's not really my bag in comedy. I don't just want to like do that. What we're going to talk specifically about is the clip in which Liam says the band is formed around him.
Part of the reason One Direction was made was because of Simon's promise to me that in 2 years, I'll make this work for you.
Wow.
So he kind of started with my face and then worked around the rest. I've never told that story before.
You were the inception.
I was the honorary member of One Direction, yes. And he told me that story himself in his house.
Now, people at the time really did go in on him for this. I think partially because it was coupled with a couple of other statements that were like, it's just it's very podcast, it's very like dude podcast vibes. He says the quote in this one where somebody in One Direction pushes him up against the wall and he says, if you don't take your hands off me, you're gonna lose those hands, or something like that. He also said that his song Strip That Down outsold every single member in the band, things like that. Again, what happened, it was very sad. Not arguing that. But this statement, alongside the other ones, got clowned for being like, he's delusional, he's so out of touch, these are crazy, this is funny, ha ha ha. But what I will say is that this statement is correct. rot. It is. I understand that if you don't have the One Direction fandom brain rot that I have, you maybe would be like, well, the band wasn't built around him. Like, either you think they were all thrown together, nobody was built around anybody, or you're like, well, Harry is the most famous, so they were obviously built around Harry. But yes, Liam Payne auditioned for the X Factor in 2010, but he also auditioned when he was 15 years old, 2 years before, in 2008. As a solo artist, again, he makes it to the Judge's House stage before eventually getting cut for being too young by Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell says to him, work really hard, take vocal lessons, really work on your craft, and then in 2 years audition again. I think you're just too young. Liam does that. He gets a vocal coach and goes from 2 octaves to 3 octaves. People who know singing have more context for that than I do, but that sounds good. He starts professionally singing, like singing at weddings and events and things of that nature. And then he comes back and auditions again. And, you know, just speaking, when you watch those early One Direction tapes, a lot of them have this kind of like innate, not only charisma, but an innate ability to sing that we do see later fostered when they are given like professional coaching. Zayn just has like kind of a ridiculous voice out the gate. Harry's got like a really kind of good tone, but Liam is technically the most talented singer because he has worked at it. Like he's very driven. He's worked at it to become a singer and come back. So he just like is good. Like his X Factor audition is fully good. I feel like I don't want to support that and then people watch it and it's not good, but I remember him singing Cry Me a River like he is a good singer. Also, when he comes back, you know, like Simon Cowell knows he's been working at it, knows that Liam wants this, knows that Liam is like working professionally, has the drive to work at it, and is dependable. So he's a good person to kind of be the one that the band is made around because he is a leader, right? And he takes this seriously. I think when you're making a boy band out of 16-year-old, 17-year-old boys, the biggest concern is, are they going to take it seriously? Are they going to take this professionally? Seriously. And you know Liam is going to do that. So if you build the band around him, he's kind of like this grounding force. So in the earlier kind of like rehearsals and performances as One Direction, even on the X Factor, like Liam does a lot of the singing. But even at the Judge's House, when they go to the Judge's House, they sing Torn by Natalie Imbruglia. I think that's how you say that. Harry has it. He does. I know that that's annoying, and I think that the idea of star quality pisses people off because it's seen as innate, which vocal quality can be too. But there is just something about Harry that is very compelling. And Simon Cowell locks onto that pretty quickly. And you can see as their performances go along in the X Factor, Liam goes from the center of the formation to competing with that quite often with Harry, who now is leading a lot of the choruses. He has a good vocal tone for choruses. It just works with what pop music was at that time. So when you're singing a lot of the choruses, you're singing a lot in the song. And there is just something compelling about Harry. In his X Factor audition, he talks about how he works at a bakery with old ladies and he's very funny, very charming. At their Judge's House performance, he's like performing, and a lot of them haven't really got there yet in terms of like knowing how to really perform and connect. He just knows how to do it. In the X Factor video diaries they do, he's just, him and Louis are actually like, just, you connect with them. They're very extroverted. They are people that you connect with. And Harry's just really good at performing on stage. I think like I would define star quality, and I know you guys are asking for my expert opinion, as a mix of like charisma, an ability to just perform in a compelling way, like when you watch somebody and your eyes are just drawn to them, and an ability to connect with an audience. And Harry was just very good at that. And you can basically see from their Judge's House performance that Simon kind of has this like, allegedly, don't try and sue me, Simon. This kind of light bulb moment of being like, oh, that's a fucking star right there. And it's not, he's not wrong. If you watch those videos, he's just kind of got it. And I understand that that can be annoying. Like, I would be annoyed, but it is true. So when Liam says like the band was built around me, I want to believe him. You know, I think that that's probably true. I think it makes the most sense to me if I was putting together a boy band group, which I should be allowed to do. Somebody get me that job. He's very dependable and just a great centerpiece. And he'll take it seriously. You know, that happens a lot in K-pop groups where it's like the person who has been doing this the longest and working hard at this the longest, a lot of times will be the center because you just know that they can handle it. But nobody could have seen the shining bright light of Harry Styles coming out of the woodwork and then slowly just through kind of like charisma and star quality becoming this leader of One Direction. And I know people who are in the fandom are gonna be like, there's no leader, it was all equal. But like, I'm talking specifically about how they were marketed and the line distribution of songs. And so often, basically since the end of the X Factor on, it gets a little bit more even as the band continues on in like 4 and Made in the AM, their last 2 albums. But especially in their Up All Night and One Thing like era, Harry is in the center. You know, he's obviously the one that's being pushed. When they're on iCarly, the whole storyline is surrounded by Harry. Like, Harry gets sick, so he stays in Carly's bed. Not me, Carly. Carly Shay. And he's pretending to be sick because he likes being taken care of or whatever. So, like, he just is being pushed as, like, the most popular one, okay? Exhibit B. The contracts. So December 2010, One Direction is off the X Factor. They sign a 2-year, 2-album deal with modest management. So by 2012, this is fulfilled. They each get £2 million. Pretty good. So then they re-sign a contract. And we don't specifically get the information of what this contract entails, but it is later leaked to the press by The Sun. So grain of salt, obviously, that they have a specific deal that means if everybody stays in the band until 2016, they all get a massive payout, basically incentivizing the band to stay together and for no one to go solo. And if they do, then they get this huge payout basically for all of them staying in the band. It's kind of like the prisoner's dilemma. Again, this is not 100% confirmed. What I will say that from my sources online, the head of the Sun's showbiz section at the time was Dan Wooten, who is a longtime friend of One Direction publicist and friend of Simon Cowell, Simon Jones. So a lot of times when these leaks to the Sun happen, they're either so true or actually so fucking false, it's crazy. So grain of salt. But if that is true, I find that really, really interesting, because that means if somebody leaves the band before 2016, Zayn, not only would I as a band member be fucking pissed because you've left the band, I'd also be pissed because I'm like, great, I just lost fucking $2 million at least, probably more because it would be greater than their contract, right? Than their previous contract. It is like selfish in a way, because that contract is literally put in place, whether it be manipulative or not, but to be like, if somebody leaves and goes solo, we all kind of know that they might be fucking you all over, but now in legalese, we know they're you over. Now let's do Exhibit C, the final discussion. This is not the final discussion that One Direction had as a band, but this is a discussion that we have from a couple of different band members' points of view that is the discussion that basically signals the end of the band. It happens sometime in late 2014 at a recording studio in London. One Direction has a conversation about their future. Let me read some of the different POVs. In a profile written by Cameron Crowe in 2017 for the Rolling Stone. That's right, it's called the Rolling Stone. I get it confused with the Rolling Stones, obviously. That's whatever. Here's a direct quote. It was in a London studio in late 2014 that Styles first brought up the idea of One Direction taking a break. Quote, I didn't want to exhaust our fan base, he explains. If you're short-sighted, you could think, let's just keep touring. But we all thought too much of the group to let that happen. You realize you're exhausted and you don't want to drain people's belief in you. After much discussion, the band mutually agreed to a hiatus, which was announced in August 2015. Zayn Malik had abruptly left 1D several months earlier. So now we know it's in late 2014. From Harry's perspective, he brings up the idea of eventually, after their contracts end, again, the contract that gives them all their huge payout, we'll stay together to the end of that contract, everyone gets their paycheck, then we'll go on a hiatus. Okay? From his perspective, he doesn't want to exhaust the fan base. I believe this. I think this is true. I also think it's easy to say that when you are the most popular member. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, well, obviously you fucking think that. You'll be fine. This is Louis' perspective. This is from an interview with The Guardian. In the last year of One Direction, I was probably the most confident I ever was. And then it was, okay, hiatus. Tomlinson argued against it, he says. When the band first sat down to discuss separation, it wasn't necessarily a nice conversation. I could see where it was going. And then in an interview with Call Her Daddy, Zayn talks about the same conversation and says, certain people were doing certain things. Certain people didn't want to sign contracts, probably Harry. So I knew something was happening and I just got ahead of the curve. I completely selfishly wanted to be the first person to go and make my own record. If I'm being completely honest with you, I was like, I'm gonna jump the gun here for the first time. I'm a passive dude, but when it comes to my music and my business, I'm serious about it and I'm competitive. I wanted to be the first to go and do my own thing. We obviously don't have Liam or Niall's perspective on this. I'm always kind of like, Niall is just so chill. Like, if you can be anybody in this story, you should be Niall. Niall is like on a golf course caddying for like a superstar of golf who I don't know who the he is, but Niall's having the time of his life. Niall's a touring musician just living out his dreams fine. The most problematic thing Niall did was be with Ellie Goulding, and Ellie Goulding cheated on Ed Sheeran. Allegedly, so we don't know what Niall thought about this. We don't know what Liam thought about this. But what we can parse through these separate quotes is that Louis did not want to break up. He found that he was finally hitting his stride. He also got to write a ton of songs. Like, he wrote a bunch of songs for One Direction, especially at this point, so he's building his confidence. He's understanding what he's doing. Harry brings up the idea of hiatus, whether or not it's Trojan horse beyond the idea of, like, let's not exhaust our fan base. It's coming from a perspective of they were still doing very, very well at the time, at the end of their career. Like, they didn't kind of fade away. They were doing very well. So kind of coming from this place of, like, well, why don't we go out on a high? We don't want to exhaust the fan base. Let's take a break. And that maybe was interpreted by a couple people, as Zayn said as well, of being like, Harry doesn't want to re-sign the contract. Harry's going to go solo. Everyone's always been saying Harry's going to go solo. So Zayn decides, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go out on my own. I'm going to make the record first. I'm going to be the Beyoncé. And if I leave first, then I'm going to be the most successful. Okay? So again, this is sometime in late 2014. And we know that Zayn, at the beginning of 2015, in March, leaves the band for good. Exhibit D. Zayn goes missing. In the very late end of 2014, Zayn begins missing band commitments. They're releasing their album 4, which fucking rocks, is maybe my favorite One Direction album. Through researching this, I've been listening to their songs again, and 4 just fucking rips. It's so good. I don't care. I'll defend that fucking album. So Zayn starts missing band commitments, whether it be shooting promotional footage, going on the press tour for the album, which is titled 4, and other things. So we'll go through that. So Zayn misses a couple of days during the press tour for the album titled 4. Okay. They say at the time that he was out sick, and the interviews that he is missing from, we now know, were filmed on November 1st. Fans begin to notice that something's up when One Direction releases the promotional footage for their perfume Between Us. Yes, One Direction has several perfumes. Catch up. Look at me. Focus. That's not important right now. So Zayn is missing from the promotional footage. This is pre-COVID times. So, like, people missing things because of illness, it wasn't as acceptable, and it was a bit weird, especially if you're like a band. Like, if it's a band and you're filming promo for a perfume ad and somebody is sick, you just simply reschedule the shoot at the time, but he's not there, and people are like, that's weird. So they try and place when this was filmed, and through looking at the tattoos on Harry's body, they notice that he does not have a mermaid tattoo, a tattoo which he got in November of 2014. So now we know Zayn missed at some point in November, like in the early November or before then, a promo shoot for their perfume. They also know on November 1st, he missed press. So what's going on? Zayn also misses the first 2 days of their album release show for the album titled 4. I love that I have to say it that way, so you know that I just can't say like 4-4. 4-4. The album. One Direction does this event with the Today Show. They move the Today Show to Orlando, Florida, and have a 3-day event promoting the album. Different live shows, different celebrities, different games with fans, all those things. Zayn misses the first 2 days of that due to sickness again. So this is on November 15th, 16th, and 17th. We know that Zayn missed November 1st. We know that he missed some day of promo in November before Harry got his mermaid tattoo in early November. Okay, because he got his mermaid tattoo sometime in mid-November. We also know that he missed the 15th and the 16th of the album promotion days. So we can assume that this conversation that happened sometime in late 2014 happened probably at the end of October, give or take. And then in the beginning of November, Zayn sets in motion his plan to go solo. Exhibit E, the On the Road Again tour. Okay? Zayn leaves midway through the On the Road Again tour. This is the tour in promotion of the album 4, but The first leg, One Direction, is visiting places that they did not visit on their previous tour. So it makes sense to me that in contract disputes, you as a management would be like, you can leave, but you should go to these places that have never seen you before you leave. The swath of the entire tour is from February 7th to October 31st of 2015. When I was a kid, God, I wanted to be a pop star. I wanted to be a movie star. And then I look at these schedules and I'm like, I could not deal with that. You know what I was doing at 22? I guess I was making fucking YouTube videos. That's crazy. It was the pandemic, so I couldn't really get up to too much trouble. I was like smoking weed in my parents' backyard and listening to Sgt. Pepper by the Beatles because I'm insufferable. But I wasn't on a world tour for like 10 months. What is that? What's the math? 10 months-ish? 8-9 months of the year? That's crazy. Obviously, there are breaks in between. The first chunk of the shows is from February 7th to April 4th. These are when they are visiting places that were not visited on the previous tour, okay? And in between April 4th, they have a break until June 5th. The second chunk of shows for the tour is June 5th to October 31st. So we can posit that Zayn was supposed to leave in between April 4th and June 5th. And here's also why fans were able to figure out that something was not right. When you look back in time, it makes sense. The set list. Because if you recall, these are new songs, right, that feature Zayn. He wants to leave the band. He's not necessarily showing up to other engagements. So it is possible that he might not also be showing up for tour rehearsal. It's possible. So when the set list for the first half, the first leg of the On the Road Again tour drops, fans are confused because there's not a lot of songs from the album 4, which is the album they're basically supposed to be promoting. These are the songs that fans haven't seen live, haven't seen perform. I would posit allegedly, Simon Cowell, do not come for me. I'm small potatoes. That it's easier to reconfigure a running order when you're missing someone who's not showing up to rehearsals with old songs you've already rehearsed. You're like, okay, well, Zayn's not here, but we've already rehearsed songs from previous albums. We've done them on tour so much you can basically do it in your sleep. The only real problem is the songs from 4 that we haven't rehearsed together. So the way that you would fix that is by loading the set list with songs that the group had already rehearsed. Again, this is like alleged. I'm literally positing here, but what is the point of this if not for me to kind of suggest ideas, right? So when the set list comes out and fans are like, okay, actually I have the breakdown. There's 24 songs on the set list of the first leg of this tour. 13 songs are from Midnight Memories, their third album. 2 songs are from Take Me Home, their second album. 2 songs are from Up All Night, their first album. 1 song is a cover, Uptown Funk, and 6 songs are from 4. So that's like a lot of songs from Midnight Memories, the previous album. But those songs would not only be ones that you have rehearsed, it would also be ones you would have rehearsed semi-recently and done semi-recently. So you know that Zayn can do them even if he's not at rehearsal. And like, hey, no judgment. I don't really think anyone should have to do their job if they don't want to do it. Like, I'm very pro kind of like slacking off. No judgment here. I think especially if I like wanted to leave the band and they were like, you can leave the band after you do the first leg of this tour, I'd be like, kill me. So it's not like I'm like, and he didn't show up. I'm like, it seems like they were going through a lot at that moment. Vibes did not seem great in the band. Needless to say, fans were not happy that the set list lacked a lot of songs from 4. First of all, because they hadn't heard a lot of those songs. Also because 4 rocks. That album is awesome. So they were demanding that songs like Stockholm Syndrome be placed on the set list. The other thing that this could be due to is that the tour before the On the Road Again tour would be the tour for the album Midnight Memories. And as I said before, the first leg of this tour is to places they did not tour that album. So you also want to do some songs from Midnight Memories as well. I don't know. No one knows. We aren't in the room. I do just think it's interesting. So fans are demanding that more songs from 4 are added. And while performing in Japan, the group sings Stockholm Syndrome, okay? And this is a song that is later added to the set list on the second leg of the tour. But it wasn't on the set list for the first leg. And Zayn and Louis forget the lyrics while in Japan singing Stockholm Syndrome. They don't remember the lyrics. And everyone's like, but girl, this is your song. And I'm of 2 minds of this. First, it's very possible that little to no rehearsal with these songs, you might not remember them, especially if you're Zayn and you're like, peace and love, I am checked out of this group. I'm fucking checked out, bitch. You wouldn't remember it. Also, I think if I was a singer, I would actually forget the lyrics to my songs every time. I'd be like, now you sing it. Because I don't remember. So that's in Japan. And in general, fans have said, and this is, after the fact, so who's to say, that the first leg of the tour felt very under-rehearsed. And it very well could be, because if Zayn's not there, it's hard to rehearse without one person. Now, on March 18th, after their show in Hong Kong, Zayn leaves, and it is reported that this is due to stress, and he is taking a break from the next couple of shows because of exhaustion and stress. However, it is also reported, there are rumors at the time, that he is leaving to go back to England because he has cheated on Perry twice during this first leg of the tour, and she's his fiance at the time, Perry Edwards from Little Mix, and he's going to try and patch things up with her. Yikes. That sounds fucking stressful. So that's on March 18th. They say Zayn's leaving, but it's just because he's exhausted, don't worry. And then a week later, they're like, so actually, just kidding. He is leaving the band to be a normal 22-year-old. Exhibit F. Naughty Boy. I talked a bit about this in my One Direction drama video, which I kind of wish I could redo. I feel like I could do it a lot better now, but it's a fun video. You can watch it if you want. So Zayn says, on the 25th, I'm leaving to be a normal 22-year-old, have a private life, and just be regular. But we now know from his Call Her Daddy interview much later that he was like, no, I left to become a solo artist and to go solo first. I would also posit that in some way, his relationship with his fiance falling apart is also doing part to this, right? Like, there's a lot of stressors happening. However, as far as the fandom and the public knows at this time, Zayn has left to become a normal 22-year-old. That's on the 25th. On the 26th, he is photographed going into the studio. Whose studio? Naughty Boy. Naughty Boy is a producer, musician. I don't really know about him outside of this context, but he is like respected in, I should actually see, what's the brand of music he does? So he's a DJ and record producer. Okay, apparently he won money on Deal or No Deal. He combines R&B and classic UK breakbeat. And he's produced songs with Sam Smith and Beyoncé. So hey, there you go. So, you know, people were confused because we're like, girl, literally yesterday you said you wanted to be a regular 22-year-old, and now you're in the studio. It seems like maybe you just wanted to go solo. He's continually photographed also on the 28th, going into the studio with Naughty Boy, and at some time during this time, Naughty Boy releases a demo of a new Zayn song on his SoundCloud. So fans are like, what the fuck? Sorry, it's just funny. It's just funny to me because you said that you wanted to be a normal 22-year-old and now you're releasing solo Zayn songs on SoundCloud. There were little snipes. The thing that triggered the Zayn and Louis Tomlinson fight, I think, is a photo where One Direction, maybe it was 4, went platinum, and they're posing with like the record with a picture of them, and objectively hilarious, Liam covers Zayn's face with his hand. Like, okay, it's a little funny. There was also rumors going around, there was somebody who was doing like a weird kind of online BuzzFeed prank saying that he was going to replace Zayn in One Direction. This was just like a gag. I think he was trying to get on Ellen or something. It's not important to the story. But there was just lots of like, whether manufactured or not, drama at the moment of, is Zayn going to be replaced? Zayn left One Direction. What's going on? And this basically continues up until like very recently, where after Zayn's death, the band seems to are doing okay, of just kind of snipes and little swipes of Zayn leaving the band, because there's obviously a lot of pain there. So on May 6th, Naughty Boy and Louis, oh my god, I'm a Directionator, they get in a Twitter fight. I said this before, and I will say it again. I miss the days when celebrities were unfiltered on Twitter, just actually getting into full beef, full fights. Y'all are too soft now. We are too used to a very squeaky clean celebrity image. This is why whenever Chapel Roan goes on like a podcast, everyone's like, can you believe she said that? And it's like, yeah, I was in the One Direction fandom. I was in the 5 Seconds of Summer fandom when they were doing just crazy shit on Keek. Remember Keek? So it's like, I'm used to unfiltered 17-year-old to 22-year-old boy thoughts on Twitter. So no, Chapel Roan saying parents are miserable on a podcast doesn't really faze me. You'll have to forgive me. So Naughty Boy tweets, replace this, period, with a photo of him and Zayn using kind of a laptop filter, being like, replace this. You can't replace Zayn. Louis tweets, remember when you were 12 and you used to think those Mac filters for your pictures were cool? Haha. Some people still do. Ha. And here's why Louis is my favorite member of One Direction. I like them all equally. Like I do like them all. Louis was always my favorite, and that's because he's a fucking bitch. He's a little bitch. He is nasty. And I love that. I love a mean, like, not like mean in the way of like when people don't deserve it, but is not afraid to be just pissy on Twitter. I love that. We love that here on uncarley.youtube.com. Naughty Boy responds, and some people can't even sing, but who's complaining when there's auto-tune, eh? Okay. Canadian. to say the least, a little bit of A. I also like that it's May 6th, 2015 from Ealing, London. I love geotag that shit. It's like, have you seen that stuff that's like sent from my Samsung fridge? I would love it if these were sent from a Samsung fridge. Fringe. Louis responds, Jesus, forgot you were such an in-demand producer. How does it feel to be riding on the back of someone else's career? Naughty Boy says, remember when you oh no, this is right. Oh my God. I forgot. It's not Naughty Boy. Zayn responds to this saying, remember when you had a life and stopped making bitchy comments about mine? This was tough for us in the One Direction fandom because this is boy infighting. And Zayn and Louis were always really close. Like, they were very good friends in the band. And we'll get to this and I'll talk about it right now, I guess. There's a lot of pain in this relationship. I know it's supposed to be like a funny video. What happened? Makes me depressed. Naughty Boy also responds and says, yeah, how does it feel, mate? You've been doing that for the last 5 years, like riding on Zayn's coattails. I've got Emil Sand and Sam Smith on my CV. This emoji. Louis responds saying, good for you, well done. I think we've done all right in terms of sales, and I happen to write most of them. Keep trying. So that's kind of that. Okay? So everyone's like, a Zooey infight? Are you crazy? You'll also remember Zayn and Louis are friends. They also were the ones that smoked weed together. There's the thing when they were on tour in a leaked video, they smoked weed together. They were friends, a lot of pain in that relationship. Now, on December 17th, 2016, Louis Tomlinson's mother passed away sadly from leukemia, and her dying wish to her son was for Louis and Zayn to reconnect because she knew that Louis and Zayn were such good friends, and she felt sad that her son had lost such an important relationship and had this severed relationship that caused her so much pain. Crazy tonal shift in this video, stick with me. On December 10th, 2016, Louis performs Just Hold On with Steve Aoki on the X Factor in tribute to his mother. And he asks the members of One Direction to come and support him by watching. The members of One Direction, besides Zayn, come and watch. In an interview on March 8th, 2019, Louis said, truthfully, it never really got better. I had a couple calls with him after I lost my mom, and all the boys had agreed to come to that performance, and he didn't show, so that really bugged me. That's tough. That's a sad relationship. On September 22nd, 2023, Louis comments on Zayn's birthday post for his child, basically just being like, happy birthday, Kai. Some people are like, okay, have they severed? Have they rekindled their relationship? But we don't get any information beyond that. Sadly, it seems that after Liam's death, they have reconnected very recently after what Louis went to one of Zayn's shows and they left the venue together and went into the car together. It is really sweet. It's sad given the circumstances, but they are seemingly friendly again, which is so nice. Oh, it's just sad. It's just sad that seemingly Zayn leaving the band, I think, really, really hurt Louis. We also know from his perspective of the 2014 conversation that he didn't want the band to end and I think got a lot out of the band. So I would imagine that Zayn leaving and not even showing up would really hurt. And to not show up to your mother's tribute performance, Zayn has struggles with mental health and things of that nature. I'm not saying that he showed up to like hurt Louis' feelings, but I think that would also be tough to deal with. So that's all that happened there. The last kind of thing, we're going back to the Naughty Boy fight. So that happens in May of 2015. In July of 2015, Zayn announces that he signed a solo deal with RCA Records. So this is confirming he did not leave to become a regular 22-year-old. The fans can no longer be like, no, guys, he's just doing music for fun. He wants to be a regular 22-year-old. It's fine. He wants to be a solo artist. He's announcing it, and he also announces it with this tweet. I guess I never explained why I left. It was for this moment to be given the opportunity to show you who I really am. Hashtag real music, hashtag RCA. People did not like real music because it, again, implies that the music made in One Direction is not real music. I think I see both sides in this. I love some of those One Direction songs. I also think that you see this a lot with like adult men whose fan bases are primarily young women. The patriarchy and like intrinsic misogyny in society means that they think that their work matters less. And I think a lot of these guys in One Direction either really felt that and tried to rectify that post One Direction in a way that didn't read really well, or leaned into it and were able to succeed because of that. Because basically since that, Harry has always been very much like, no, I feel good about the music that I made in One Direction. Same with Niall, because Niall's unproblematic. Niall's on a golf course being like, oh, One Direction, loved it. What's going on with y'all? Also in a interview with Teen Vogue, Zayn Malik said that, and obviously, like, we kind of know this, that Facebook post when he left One Direction with his statement was written by a lawyer. He didn't say that. He didn't say that he wanted to be a regular 22-year-old. And I'm kind of the mind of being like, well, like, just own your shit. Like, I get it. You want to be a solo artist. That's fine. If you want to go off and do your own thing, that's fine. But, like, you can't be like, well, my lawyer against my, like, you have to sign off on what your lawyer says. Your lawyer just can't say stuff in your name without your approval. Anyways, people were not happy about hashtag real music. Exhibit F? I should have written this down. The hiatus. July 29th, 2015. Zayn announces he signed a solo deal. August 23rd, 2015, news outlets start to report that One Direction will be taking an extended hiatus from group activities starting in January of 2016. This was always the narrative, which we've realized was a lie. That One Direction was taking a hiatus. They were coming back, guys. Don't worry, the hiatus, it's just a hiatus. They're coming back, but the band fully broke up. On November 13th of 2015, Made in the AM, One Direction's 5th studio album is released. Okay? It's without Zayn, obviously. With their lead single from this, I believe, was Drag Me Down, which people were like, it's about Zayn. Nobody can drag me down. That one. I think that's right. Harry throws a lot of shade at Zayn during the press tour for Made in the AM. He says that yin and yang tattoos are cliche and Zayn has one. Somebody says like, oh, well, Zayn's left the band, and he pretends to look for him being like, what? Really? Somebody says, well, I have to mention the Z word or the Z word. And Harry goes, zebras? And when somebody asked what the hardest part of Zayn leaving the band was, Harry said that the paperwork was the hardest part. That he seems genuinely, obviously there's a little bit of anger towards Zayn. We see this again when he's hosting SNL. And he says like, I love all those guys from One Direction. Louis, Niall, Liam, Ringo. But it also just seems like anger of like constantly being asked about it. I think he was probably annoyed about that. And on December 13th, 2015, One Direction performs on the X Factor one last time without Zayn. So they all start doing their own solo activities. I wrote a whole timeline of it. I don't think it's really interesting. But what you basically need to know is Zayn releases his first studio album, which has Pillow Talk, which does extremely well. He also releases I Don't Want to Live Forever, which is a collaboration with Taylor Swift, Harry's ex, for the 50 Shades of Grey movie, which does really well. He has a couple of singles, especially in the beginning part of his career, that do really well. He has some relationship drama and some really just like tough family shit going on with Gigi Hadid that we don't need to get into. I don't think it's important. His career had slowed down a bit, even though it did genuinely quite well out of One Direction, just because he didn't want to tour and he didn't release music consistently. Louis is a touring musician, kind of makes music more akin to like not the White Stripes, but who does the White Tees? Who does Hey There Delilah? Whoever does Hey There Delilah, it's not the White Stripes. Liam released LP1, his first record, and it didn't do necessarily that well. It was a lot more like R&B, kind of hard. I think he tried to lean into like an edgier image, when I feel like honestly he should have done like a Michael Bublé route. I just think that he should have done a Christmas album. I would have beaten that up. And obviously was dealing with addiction at the time. Niall's done fucking great for himself. He's like a fully successful touring musician, has had some radio hits, just in his own corner vibing. Be Niall. If you have a choice, be Niall. Just be like, oh, okay. But the timeline that I think is important to note is that Zayn releases music, then Niall releases his single, This Town, in September of 2016. So he's the second person from One Direction to release solo music. And then Harry releases Sign of the Times, and then his debut solo album, Harry Styles, and then Liam releases his album, and then Louis. So Harry is not the first by any means. It goes Zayn, Niall, Harry, Liam, Louis. And Liam's album, I think, I have it on here. So Harry's first solo album comes out on the 12th of May, 2017. And Liam's first solo single from LP1 is released on May 19th. So they're like really close together. I just think that's interesting because I think up until this point, the narrative was very much, you need to be the first one to leave in order to secure a solo career. When Harry Styles, and we will get into his solo career because I think is fascinating, basically proves that wrong. But in a way, right? We'll get into it. Okay. Exhibit G, Harry Styles' solo career. We're going to do a bit of an overview because I think it, again, provides context, and it's kind of like a bookend to why did One Direction break up. I think it's fascinating. Like, it's so interesting to me just how Harry Styles has handled his solo career. While in One Direction, he networked his ass off. Doing research for this actually inspired me. I was like, I need to do this. I'm so ass at networking. And when he networks, it's not like, hi, can I give you my card? Good networking is just being genuinely interested in people and building connections by just like being a friendly person. I think one of the worst things I've learned in adult life is like hanging out is the best thing you can do for your career. Like, as someone who just loves to go home early, hanging out with people and just talking to people is like really good for your career, and he's very good for that. But I think that this networking is great because you can see that throughout his basically since 2014 onwards, Harry has been planning on going solo while still showing up for the band, so that when the band breaks up, even though Zayn is the one that goes solo, Harry is the one that pitched Hiatus. Harry has been doing solo activities and preparing to go solo while in the band, but it's like Zayn is seen as the bad guy, and Harry's like, gets to be like, I loved this band, I did nothing wrong. It's fascinating to me. So in 2010, Harry meets Ed Sheeran through Chris Leonard, who is a guitarist who plays with One Direction. Harry and Ed Sheeran crash on the same couch together. They have matching Pingu tattoos, so that's a connection that is made there. Ed Sheeran writes a couple of songs for One Direction, like Little Things, where it's like, you have stretch marks, but you're beautiful to me. So don't fucking worry about it, you fucking ugly piece of shit. That's what makes you beautiful. My favorite genre of One Direction song, by the way, being like, you fucking ugly cow piece of shit garbage bag. I actually love that about you. No one else would, but I love it. Also in 2010, Harry meets James Corden. Louis' mom worked on a show with James and emails him after the boys are on X Factor and living in London, and she tells James to look after them for her. So they go over and like play video games and shit at James Corden's house, and Harry really connects with James and is really good friends with James Corden, even to this day. It's kind of nuts. Also, in September 21st, 2011, Harry Styles and Nick Grimshaw meet at the GQ Awards, where James is seated at a table with One Direction and James Corden. James introduces Nick Grimshaw to the boys. Harry becomes really good friends with Nick, and basically, Harry has this kind of pattern where he like meets a friend and basically spends absolutely every fucking day with them, going out, doing things, going to clubs, getting drinks, going to concerts, all these things, and meeting people in their group. And I don't know if this is conscious or not, but it's just great brand association because Nick Grimshaw has a radio show. He was like friends with that like Alexa Chung, Tumblr, Set, British models. So Harry would be constantly brought up on Nick Grimshaw's radio show because they were friends. Because they spent a ton of time together in 2011 into 2012. Harry also dates a lot of famous people with American appeal when they are making the jump to America. He dates Taylor Swift quite famously in November of 2012, right before they play Madison Square Garden. There's those photos of them walking around Central Park, like the most staged pat photos you've ever seen, right before they play Madison Square Garden. This is Taylor Swift right before she releases Red, and then 1989, which is a lot about him. He's in the zeitgeist because of that. He dates Kendall Jenner in 2013 and in 2016. So he's in the zeitgeist just like from his attachments to famous women. His 21st birthday party in 2015 has so many famous people at it. He has Alexa Chung, Nick Grimshaw, Rashida Jones, Rita Ora, Cara Delevingne, Gigi Hadid, Kendall Jenner. Adele gave him a copy of 21 on his 21st birthday. Like, he just is friends with a lot of famous people. Like, it's kind of like the Taylor Swift Girl Squad, but a bit more nuance, a bit more gentle. Like, he is just with the famous people, hanging out with the famous people, you know? Because he's a hanger out. Like, I've got to learn to hang more. I just get so fucking tired, but he's so good at it. He also networks with people in music. He starts writing songs for other people and just with other people just to get practice some time in the studio. He writes 2 songs with Johan Carlson in 2014. One which is for Sierra and Alex. Sierra is Luke Hemmings' wife, I think, but that's just a random connection. She used to be in like the singing duo with her first husband, whatever. The second song was for Ariana Grande, okay? It's also reported in February of 2014 that Harry wrote music in the studio with John Lennon, who's alive, by the way. John Legend. May 19, 2016, he writes music with Johnny McDade of Snow Patrol. So, you know, he's not only just in networking with other celebrities, he's writing music with musicians, kind of furthering this idea of like being an artist. And what I think is key to basically the launch of his solo career before One Direction was broken up at all is in 2014, the same year that Harry pitches that One Direction goes on hiatus, also the same year that he writes music with John Legend, with Johan Carlson for Ariana Grande. Also the same year, he starts hanging out with all of these famous people. He starts working with his own stylist, Harry Lambert. Now, Harry Lambert is the stylist that is responsible for some of Harry Styles' most iconic looks and creating this kind of 70s rocker, rock star, but like glam rock, flamboyant, gender neutral, androgynous looks. He put Harry Styles in pearls. This is when he's still with One Direction. And One Direction, before they used to style themselves, then they all had the same stylist. They all still had the same stylist. Harry had a different stylist, which is how you start getting these photos at the end of 2014 into 2015 of all the guys dressed one way and Harry in like a flamboyant suit that makes him stand out. And this is just actually such a smart move. Like, I actually can't, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm like kind of bad at this stuff that it's fascinating to me. Like, him being able to say like, I supported the band, I love the music, all of these things, I was a team player, when he was still doing all these little things to kind of differentiate himself is so interesting to me. We have to talk about also in this section his friendship and relationship with Jeff Azoff. Jeff Azoff is Harry Styles' current manager, but they met in Toronto. Yes! While One Direction was on tour in 2012. On May 29th and May 31st, they played the Molson Amphitheater in Toronto, and he met Jeff Azoff, who was a manager at CAA at the time, he wasn't managing One Direction, he was just visiting there, and they became friends. We know this because in August 16th of 2023, while in Toronto, Harry says he met his best friend and manager, Scott, 10 years earlier while in Toronto. So we can assume it's at the Molson Amphitheater, which I know you're not from Toronto, so that's fine. It's such a small venue, it's funny to imagine One Direction playing that. I actually can't imagine it. Now, Jeff Azoff is the son of Irving Azoff, who is a music industry icon. He is the former CEO of Ticketmaster. He has run studios. He has been a manager. He has run management forums. If there is an area of the music business, he has in some way had his fingers in it. He is an icon. He is fantastic at his job. It's very, very interesting. His first client was REO Speedwagon, which is just interesting to me. But yeah, he's like run arenas. He owns the entire Beach Boys catalog. He's run record labels. He manages clients. He manages masters, all that stuff. I got all this information because there is as with anybody in One Direction, if there is somebody who is tangentially related to one of the boys, they have a sub-fandom in One Direction. So there's these timelines on Tumblr of Harry and Jeff Azoff's relationship, which is kind of wild. So they start texting and mentioning each other in social media posts in 2013. Jeff posts a picture on Twitter in a One Direction shirt. Harry posts a cryptic tweet that's in reference to promotional work Jeff is doing with Britney Spears, one of his clients. In 2014, they do not go a month without seeing each other. They spend basically every single date together. Like Harry did with Nick Grimshaw earlier. He's an obsessive friend, what can we say? Harry spends a lot of time with Jeff's family, the Azoffs, Irving Azoff, people in the music business. They go to parties, concerts, dinner together. They go to New York together and spend time, I believe, at one of the Azoffs' apartments in New York. So all of 2014, they are spending time together. They go on family vacations together. They are really, really, really close. In January 5th of 2015, Harry is spotted taking a meeting at CAA, and they spend a lot more time in 2015 together, barring when the On the Road Again tour is happening. Okay? 2016, when One Direction is officially in hiatus, is where things get interesting. Because there's a lot of hearsay, basically a lot of people suggesting that Harry bringing up the conversation about going on a hiatus and a break was put in his head because he was manipulated by Jeff. And I'm like, so that's just, interesting point. It's the vibes of anti-Semitism. Anytime somebody's like, this person who's Jewish is controlling our dear boy Harry, who's a millionaire, there's a lot of really gross shit out there about the Azoffs in terms of people just being like actually anti-Semitic in the year of our Lord 2025. Wow. But 2016 is where things get interesting in their relationship. One Direction is officially on hiatus. Harry continues to spend a lot of time around the Azoffs. He starts dating Kendall Jenner again, and boy, do they spend every fucking day on a yacht. Nobody loves to be on a yacht more than Harry Styles, which we also know from the Taylor Swift song Now That We Don't Talk, which was a vault track from 1989, an album a lot about Harry Styles. The outro / bridge of the song is, now that we don't talk, I don't have to pretend I like acid rock or that I like to be on a mega yacht with important men who think that important thoughts. But nobody loves to be on a yacht more than Harry. The yacht that him and Kendall spend time on is owned by a friend of the Azoffs. The manager of the Kardashians is Irving Azoff. Kanye's tour manager and later manager was Irving Azoff. It's been implied that Irving Azoff introduced Kim and Kanye. I don't think it's out of the question that Kendall Jenner in some way was also introduced to Harry via the Azovs. It's just interesting, like all these things happening at the same time, like all these just intertwined whatever. In January, February, and March of 2016, we begin to get these rumors about Harry leaving Modest and signing with a different management, and rumors of Harry signing with Jeff specifically. Because on March 7th, it is announced that Jeff has left CAA to form his own management company, Full Stop Management. We know from an award speech recently where Jeff accepted an award for like, I don't know, some kind of like best manager or whatever, that Harry was the one that encouraged him to go out on his own and start his own management company. I mean, his dad is Irving Azoff, so like whatever. But like, I don't begrudge Nepo babies. As long as they admit it, I don't really care, because like if I had a single fucking connection to milk, oh bitch, I would do that. I'm already skating by on privilege. Like, I'm not above. If I had a connection, girl, tapping my card, cashing it in. So it makes sense to me. Like, if you're a manager and you want to start your own business and your dad is a music industry icon, like, go for it. There are conflicting reports as to whether Irving joined Full Stop later or he helped Jeff form it. I don't know if it necessarily matters, but they have a crazy client list. They represent John Mayer, the Eagles, John Bon Jovi, Gwen Stefani, Tate McRae, Haim, Troye Sivan, Lizzo, U2, and Harry Styles. In January 23rd, Jeff has a birthday party at the Troubadour in Los Angeles. It's a roast hosted by Harry, I believe. In the beginning of February, we get more articles and rumors that Harry has signed with Jeff, that Harry has left Modest Management. On February 5th, James Corden leaks that this is true while on air with Ryan Seacrest, which is so funny because Ryan Seacrest is not a journalist. He does not ask hard-hitting questions. So like, why did you leak it? He's not like pressing you. It's just he's blinding you with his white teeth and orange skin. But James Corden is talking about Jeff's birthday. He says that Harry organized the birthday party, and he said Jeff is Harry's manager. So we get confirmation that Harry has left Modest Management and is now being managed by Jeff Azoff at Full Stop Management. On June 23rd, Harry signs a solo deal with Columbia Records with Jeff present. This is an insane deal. There was a huge bidding war for him, obviously, but this deal gives him a lot of creative control, which I think has been instrumental, because also I think the reason that Harry has been successful is his music is very good. Like, it is good solo music. It's good pop music. And then I think, I will say, I don't need to get too much into it because I think it's interesting to me, but maybe not interesting to everyone else because I'm talking in circles. I think that Jeff's management of Harry has been fascinating. I would posit, allegedly, that a lot of the things that Harry did in 2014 till the end of the band in 2016 that differentiated himself from the band, the networking, the songwriting in the studio, the stylist, all these things could possibly, maybe allegedly, be at the advice of the Azoffs. If you're spending a ton of time with one of the greatest music managers in the history of the music industry, and you're talking being like, oh, work, am I right? And they give you advice, it's probably pretty sound advice. Because I think the way that they've been able to masterfully handle him building a solo career while still in the band, but being committed to the band so people think he's the good guy. And like, not that he is the bad guy, but it's just that like he gets to be like, I love One Direction. I love the work that we did there. I'd love to get back together while still like doing stuff to pursue a solo career. I just think it's an amazing PR work. His current management is just also great. Like, they really lean into like his primarily women fan base, making him seem very like genderqueer, androgynous, kind of queer coded. We don't know his sexuality, it doesn't matter, but still cool and still sexy by honing in on this like visual brand of a 70s rock star. It's like Mick Jagger, like 70s rock stars dress femme and cool, but they are sexy. So he's able to walk this line of being like seeming approachable and nice, and he is just like very charismatic. He has that star quality while also seeming like hot and still being able to be a sex symbol. They've also given him so much more scarcity. He doesn't post online a lot or really personally anymore, so he doesn't give like bad takes. He just goes on like Howard Stern and like defends his drummer who's a woman from misogyny, covers Joni Mitchell for the BBC, or like hosts James Corden's show when James, I believe, is having a baby. So when you do see him, he's just being like a good guy. So whenever you do hear about him, you hear good stuff about him. I feel like the worst PR he got was during the Don't Worry Darling stuff, and he's completely recovered from that. Like, Jeff Azoff, I would love to read a PDF of your brand strategy. I think it's fucking fascinating. Just because so often in my life, when somebody does something bad, like a celebrity, I'm like, that's really bad management. Like, why the would they think that that's a good idea? But like, they've branded him with this whole treat people with kindness brand. He seems very like nice and good and interesting, like an artist. Like so much of his music, even though it is pop music, really reads as like artistic. Even in Don't Worry Darling, where he like looks really ugly and up at the end, it's like such a classic hot actor thing to do. They do that, like Charlize Theron did that in Monster, where it's like, if you want to win an Oscar and you're hot, you have to look ugly. That's what Amy Adams did in Hillbilly Elegy. So it's like him doing that, I'm like, yep, that all makes sense. It's just, he's just managed to a T. Crazy. So what actually happened? I posit, my hypothesis is Harry begins hanging out with Jeff Azoff and around the Azoffs, gets a bigger introduction to the music industry, gets a greater literacy for the industry. You know, it's the same reason why people who are Nepo babies often do well, because they have people who have information and connections and advice to give in the industry. So he realizes he wants to go solo, but he doesn't want to be the bad guy. Having a good image, especially with a young woman fan base, is very, very valuable. This is all a guess. This is a hypothesis, right? So he begins writing music with people outside of One Direction, just in the studio. He also had like a weird interaction where he tried to write with Maddie Healy, and that was a whole thing. We don't have time. We don't have the time. He gets his own stylist who creates this really, really identifiable visual brand, which we get at different points in his life. At the very end of One Direction, very long hair, kind of 70s suits, but nothing too flamboyant, but just interesting. Then we get, in the beginning of his career, the short hair, but like him in Vogue, on the cover of Vogue in a dress, him at the Met Gala in that black sheer top, him with pearls and the sweater vests, whatever. That's more the Adore You kind of era. And then we get him now in these kind of like Elton John jumpsuits during the Love on Tour. The visual brand of him is phenomenal. So they start doing that. They start solidifying that. People, the guys in One Direction are not idiots. They're sitting that, and they also just are fed this rhetoric of being like, Harry's the most famous one. Everyone loves Harry. Harry's in the news, whatever. There's surely just dynamics at play that nobody would be, it would not be a crime to befall any of them. Friendships are complicated, even when you're working with someone. Like, I can't imagine being in the limelight to that extent, being pitted against one another, so to speak. Sometime at the end of November, not at the end of November, at the end of 2014, before November, Harry brings up while in a recording studio, I will finish this contract, but I'm not going to re-sign. That's what Zayn references in the Call Her Daddy interview. People didn't want to sign contracts, probably Harry saying, I will finish this out with everyone. Everyone will get their check, that huge payout at the end of the alleged contract that they re-signed in 2012, but I'm not going to re-sign. Harry's POV of this is, I didn't want to exhaust our audience, but we can kind of see from his actions, he also just wanted to do solo stuff, right? And that's fine. This all happens. Zayn sees this, sees the writing on the wall, so to speak, of all the kind of solo activity Harry's been doing, gets spooked, decides to quit the band to beat him to the punch, which is proven by his interview on Call Her Daddy. Leaves the band, stops showing up to commitments, shows up for like the stuff that he kind of has to, the tour, the album release day, finds it really hard to still be there, wants to leave, is not doing well. Also, I think touring was just seemingly really hard on all of their psyches. It seemed like a borderline abusive schedule. Allegedly cheats on his fiance while on the tour, goes back to deal with that. Then he's gone and it's like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Quits the band prematurely and begins recording his own solo stuff. The rest of the band sees it through until the end before pursuing their own solo projects. So that's what happened. Isn't that I hope this video was interesting. I had the time of my life recording it for you. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. Quick reminder that if you are one of the first 100 people to download Midas Merge and get in your cozy game era, you will get a unique U-Turtle level 2 and is personalized with my name. It's literally called Carly. So don't miss out. Download that now. Thank you so much for watching.